I'm Kelsey Zeiser. Welcome to the Light Reading Extra podcast. We're here at Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, and I am joined by
Sylwia Kechiche, Senior Director at Opensignal, leading our industry analysis practice.
Good to see you. Thanks for joining the podcast again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And haven't seen you in a while because I haven't been to last Barcelona, but yeah, good to see you.
Yeah, it's exciting always to see people in person. And it's a really busy event so far, a lot of people here. So wanted to kick things off. You all did a recent report on why speed isn't all that matters, I believe in 5G for consumers. What are your kind of highlights from that report?
Sure. So recently published a webinar. In general, our narrative to the industry is that we need to look beyond speed, because speed is not how users measure the experience. So we do a lot of surveys. We also, as you know, Opensignal, we have a lot of customer data, and we understand what's going on in the industry. So what we have found out via the industry survey is that when people are thinking about switching carriers, especially in the US, they first look at cost. So cost is still very important and will remain so. But then they think about reliability, network experience, and what really matters. And only at the very bottom, 19% of our respondents says that they do care about speed, and speed matters when they're switching. So when you think about now and the networks where we are, like 4G, 5G networks, they're good enough for us to be able to consume and do our everyday activities. So what do you use your phone for?
I'd say a lot of texting, social media, videos. Those are probably the primary ones. Also, work emails, things like that.
Sure. Yeah, and we all. So what we actually have at Opensignal, we have this metric called excellent consistent quality, ECQ. So what we have found is a very important way and very good way for us to translate some of the user experience into a number. Because at the end of the day, you like a number, you like to measure things. Yeah. So measure it as proportion of tests that meet the threshold to be considered as a good enough to watch Netflix in HD, to be able to go on Zoom calls, on Microsoft Teams, to do all those activities. So we're looking at download, upload throughput, time to first byte, latency, jitter, and so on. So like where you are, whether your experience is good enough, and that's why we say speed is not. It's one of the important metrics. It's still important, but it's not the de facto measurement of how good your experience is, and that's what we really lean into in trying to explain that it matters. And in the 5G days, we do care more about when we have no signal, when we have no connectivity, rather than rather when we do, because you don't notice how good your network is. You know when you cannot do things. So what we also found is there's a correlation between excellent consistent quality and churn. Mm-hmm. So if in the lower percentile of not getting good experience, you're more likely to churn. If you also have no signal, you're more likely to churn. So I think from our perspective, that really does matter in terms of how good your experience is, rather than just speed itself.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think that definitely probably resonates with a lot of people, is that network performance and can I get and stay connected and do the things that I want to do, or is this video buffering?
Don't when you get the circle, that's when you care, like I can't do what I want to do, and you get frustrated and you're like, oh, you internet provider or mobile network provider, like why are you doing that? But it's important for us to actually be the voice of the customers to the industry as well. Yeah,
and that's helpful to, as you mentioned, have a number to rate it by, because speed's easy to measure if you have it, if it's fast or not, but having that number to reference is helpful. Wanted to switch gears just a little bit. You recently wrote that 5G fixed wireless access is a shining use case for 5G monetization. What do you mean by that? And tell us, give us a little background on that.
So when you think about it, we are in year 6 of 5G rollout. So 5G rollouts have been happening for quite a long time. Obviously started in South Korea, US, and they're spreading across. Some operators are already rolling on 5G standalone, and so the networks are being rolled out. But we are yet to see the killer use case. So with 4G, we had browsing. You actually had the app economy coming up, and so on. With 5G, we really don't see this killer use case apart from fixed wireless access. So what we've noticed and what we, especially in the US, in India and the Philippines, some other countries, is that 5G fixed wireless access, because it's much better than 4G based technology, it does start to get quite a big adoption. So we wrote in quite a few articles recently comparing the performance. We compared fixed wireless performance to Starlink in Canada, just to see whether or not it's good enough for rural areas, because rural areas quite often are those that fixed wireless access is going to be used for. But we're also seeing that, especially in the US, operators are using the spectral capacity to provide fixed wireless access. And it's one of the technologies that actually keeps on growing. So fixed wireless access is taking away customers from cable. Obviously, fiber is very important. But then again, when you contrast fixed wireless access versus fiber, it's not going to be the same performance. Like, let's just be clear, fiber is fiber. But what we also know, based on some of the research that we've done in studies, is that younger people prefer to be more flexible. So you can buy fixed wireless access, take it with you and so on, plug and play. So being able to just to take it from the shop, take it to your home and install within the minutes, especially in the UK, that's very, very attractive. Another thing that we've noticed is lower income households that tend to go, because it's more cost effective and so on. So this is some of the reasons why we're saying it is quite a bit of a bright, shiny star for operators when they're trying to monetize 5G. So obviously that's not all the operators are going that route, but operators that want to address those areas that doesn't make sense to allow fiber, or those that actually switching off the copper networks, so legacy networks, and they want to have a solution that they can address that need, they do go for fixed wireless access as well, and rural areas as well.
Yeah, so definitely helpful for some of those underserved areas. And then also the ease of installation, I imagine, is
Yes.
a big one, being able to handle it on your own. And then you don't have to have that, 2 to 4 hour window when you're waiting for somebody to come and install things,
yes.
and then, reschedule. You mentioned the U.S. and Philippines. Are those some of the regions where FWA is expanding the most, or what are you seeing on a regional basis?
So US definitely has been bright star for operators, expanding quite a bit. I can get back to the numbers, but we've seen taking on the net additions a lot. In the Philippines, that's a very interesting case, because 4G-based fixed wireless access was very popular, and then with time there was lots of disconnections, because again, spectral efficiency for 4G is not as good as for 5G, and the cost of module and so on. But India is one of the markets where we see a very fast adoption, just because there's lots of households that are not connected, and operators are actually thinking in terms of rolling out fiber to those neighborhoods. It's much easier to offer so-called air fiber, so fiber over the air, which is fixed wireless access. So this is one of the interesting cases that we see. But there are pockets of adoption across countries, and again in the Nordics as well, all over in South Africa. So in terms of the volumes, we see volumes increasing everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Are there any challenges to adoption for FWA? I mean, you mentioned fiber is fiber, so
Yes.
in those locations might not be as relevant, but
you still need to have very good backhaul infrastructure. So quite often, you still have to make sure that the base station is connected. You have to have enough spectrum. And when I mentioned the plug and play is very attractive in the US, in some countries you have to also make sure that it's positioned well enough so you can actually connect. So you have the indoor versus outdoor CPEs, and then it depends on the operator how they want to promote it and take it to market. But I think one thing to mention is in a very, very rural and remote areas, the cost of bringing the base stations to that neighborhoods is too prohibitive. So in that case, potentially, satellite is a better option. But connecting the unconnected digital divide topic is going to be a balancing act. So it's about which connectivity, which technology makes most sense in that area. And then when you think about the cost, so CPE is still cost. So it's also understanding, whether or not there's those services that are affordable enough for people that need it.
Yeah, definitely a lot of factors to consider, but an excellent option to have. Well, Sylwia, thanks so much for talking with me and joining the podcast. And it was so great to see you in person at the show. Have a great rest of your MWC.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Thanks.